Good catch. Good catch. Okay. Thank you for that. Apologies for that minor error. Is there any other discussion on the matter?
Now you're recording.
Okay. See none. So all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Judice,
I approve.
Director Iqbal,
I approve.
Director Loachi,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Mohammed,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
The motion passes with unanimous consent. Moving on, before we get to the consent agenda, are there any conflicts of interest to declare? As there are none, can I get a motion on the table to, wait, actually, are there any requests to amend the consent agenda as presented? As I see none, can I get a motion on the table to adopt the consent agenda as presented? Motion by Director Del Judice, seconded by Director Shandok. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Nope.
Any discussion on the matter? Is there none? So going on, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Judice,
I approve.
Director Iqbal,
I approve.
Director Loachi,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Mohammed,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
The motion passes with unanimous consent. So moving on to comments from the chair of the board and CGO. So I just want to say it's so excited for everyone to be here, and I'm extremely excited that this is our first board meeting. I'm hoping that everyone had a really fun time during the board training sessions, that they're super prepared for some of the great discussions that we're going to have there today. A second point that I want to make is that we hired our board secretary, Vivian. So I'd like Vivian to introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi guys, I'm Vivian. I'm a third year political science student on the Waterloo campus. I'm studying, besides political science, I'm studying public policy and environmental studies minor, and I'm really excited to be working with you guys. Thank you. I see all the comments. So sweet.
Yes, I spoke with Vivian before, and I wanted to make sure to pass on how excited the board is and all directors are to have her on and to be working with us for the upcoming years. So yay. With that being said, there are a number of other comments, but I'll make them later on as we get into the applicable discussion areas. So next is comments from the president and CEO. Off to you, President Yamlov.
Hi, I'm really excited to be here. It's nice to meet you all. Some of you I've met before and some I have not, so welcome to your new roles. I'm looking forward to this year. Just so people know, I don't have a board of directors background, which I know many presidents do in the past, so this is all fairly new to me, so please bear with me when I give you my updates. Which, speaking of, I did send my ends interpretation to Andrew, who I'm sure shared them all with you. As for updates as to the operations of my team, we've kind of just been doing transition things as of yet, as this is kind of like our 10th day. So I've met with some external partners within the university, and just briefly noting that we will be meeting with student publications to continue our conversations on how they present news, on student leaders and potential student leaders in regards to mental health.
Okay, thank you, President Yamlov. Do any directors have any questions regarding the comments or updates? Okay, as I see none, well, thank you for that. Moving on to comments from the executive director and COO.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to update that's not already on the agenda for today in a variety of discussion items. But I would like to echo PJ's sentiments that welcome to the Board of Directors and the first meeting of what will hopefully be a very productive working relationship over the course of this upcoming year. More formally moving forward for the June, July, and August meetings, PJ and I will be submitting operational updates in writing. So if there are any questions, you can kind of ask at that time, but happy to take any questions if there are any for today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Executive Director Champagne. Do any directors here have any questions for him? I have a quick question for you, if that's all right. Just wanted to.
I would expect nothing less.
Oh, thank you. I just want if you could just quickly, briefly update the board on the estimated cash flow position, and the other proposed one-time uses of excess cash. Is this the right time, or would you prefer?
Yeah, we can definitely do that if you wish, if it's not somewhere else on the agenda. No. Did you put it in the agenda package? I haven't.
No, I put it. I thought it would be appropriate for during your comment section. That's why. Got it.
So I just need to go find Chris's email. Give me 2 seconds.
Just thought it would be good and useful for the new board to be updated on the discussions, right?
Yeah. Let me just. Do I have permission to share?
I can give you that.
Okay.
Okay, you should have permission now.
Okay, so I'm just going to. Are we having fun yet?
Do you even need to ask that question? You can see on my face.
So everybody can see this list? Yes? Or do I need to make it bigger? Let's just make it bigger,
like
just for kicks.
Bit, please. Yeah.
Better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. So during the academic year of 2019 and 20, which would have been the year that Zamar Hakim was our president and chief executive officer, after the financial audit, which came a little bit late and was presented to last year's board, there was a significant surplus for the Students' Union. The operations team has kind of gone through and had discussions with last year's board of directors and put together this kind of list of recommendations on what to do with that surplus. It is incredibly likely that we will end up with a surplus from this past year as well. So we'll have a very similar discussion towards the end of this year and possibly even making decisions with next year's board of directors. But we don't want to deal with that right now. This list is pretty straightforward. For the board of directors, I'm assuming through your training, you've been made aware of the financial position of the Students' Union, that we've been diligently repaying a significant debt load, which is where that first and foremost payment of $200,000 goes. That would be a one-time payment against that load, which would be the equivalent of more than 1/3 of an annual payment against the debt, because we usually pay in and around $500,000+ against the debt on an annual basis. The second item on that list is the Brantford dining hall fee. So for a number of years, Brantford students were assessed a dining hall fee. At the time in the establishment of that fee, the intention was that there would be a dedicated dining hall on the Brantford campus. That plan has long since been abandoned by the university, but the students remained paying that fee through a variety of decisions that are not entirely clear to me, if I'm going to be honest. My predecessor twice removed, and his team ended up spending some of those funds. So technically speaking, there should be about $800,000 worth of money in dining hall fee, and that $234,000 payment would be repaying the money that the Students' Union borrowed against that. So it currently is sitting at 570-ish, and this would bring that up to its proper balance of where that financial commitment would be, so that the board of directors, when we're ready, can have a discussion on food service on the Brantford campus. The third item is the health and dental reserve. Again, that's just to build us up to kind of help mitigate some of the risk that the health and dental plan poses to the organization in the event that claims outweigh the amount of money that comes in. The capital reserve is an effort to kind of start putting money back towards repair and maintenance in a more meaningful and intentional way for both the Fred Nichols Campus Center as well as the Brantford Student Center. Both of those buildings are considered aging infrastructure and will likely have projects that come up that are going to be fairly expensive to deal with. So that will put a reserve account together to be able to dip into that rather than impact operational costs during any given year to have repairs to specific things. Off the top of my head, I think about the Fred Nichols Campus Center elevator project, which is slated to go hopefully in the fall, as an example. One of the things that was paramount to last year's student executive and last year's board of directors was some sort of an endowment grant or scholarship program to give money back to students in some way, shape, or form in terms of a student award. That's a $50,000 price tag, and we will be reaching out to Development and Alumni Relations to kind of set something up, and we'll update with the students of the board of directors once that is underway. And then the bottom two are an enhancement to the tech share inventory so that we can better service students on both our campuses with laptops, cameras, and all the technological needs that they may or may not need, but don't necessarily need to purchase for themselves. And the last one is a decision that the board of directors made, I believe at the meeting on April 9th, to help pay 50% of a project that was being led by CPAM, which is a welcome banner type of situation. So welcoming students back to both campuses. The idea is there is a condition attached to that price tag, which is that we would like to kind of solicit and produce student art and community art specifically designed to enhance what those welcome banners would look like. And that comes to the tune of $15,000. What the impact is, I can't speak all that well to the cash flow chart, if I might, but if you take a look at the red lines are the projected cash flow for the Students' Union as if we spend zero money on any of those projects. And the blue line indicates the impact that spending that money would have on the Students' Union cash flow situation, which in historical terms, usually towards the summer and towards the end of first term and towards the end of second term, there is some cash flow concerns. But as you can see, the Students' Union has been put into a very positive cash flow situation. And so spending this money in that way should not impact the cash flow situation for the Students' Union. And that's about that. Any questions?
Just like one quick question. Just like the sum of that list was like 800,000, right? But the difference between these two lines is only like 400 or around there.
So basically what that's saying is that the cash flow situation will remain solid because we're still going to end up with a lot of kind of revenue points and cash flow inflection. So it's basically, I mean, I can't really speak to it. It might be better for Chris Turner to come in and speak to the specific differences. Because we're not going to be spending all that money at once. It's not going to be an $800,000 cash dump. It'll be over time. And we don't have the ability right now to forecast exactly when those payments will be coming out. But that's essentially what that should be indicating.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Philip, sorry, I've got a quick question here. So we're spending $15,000 on C-SPAN banners. Will they be physical banners or will they be virtually distributed?
So they are physical pieces of, they're physical banners designed to be implemented on both campuses in various targeted areas. The total cost of the project is about $25,000 to $30,000. So we would be funding half of it. They had originally applied to the Student Life Levy for funding, but it's not an appropriate project for the Student Life Levy to have funded. It didn't follow the guidelines of that agreement. But the members of the board that are part of that committee thought it was a good project, brought it back to the board of directors, and the board of directors indicated that they would like that. They would like to kind of put money towards that project. as long as student and community art is solicited, so that it's not a purple banner with gold letters that just says welcome. It's actually meaningful art that kind of feels a little bit more like home.
Director Vale.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Executive Director, just a quick question regarding the impact of like the current COVID situation in terms of our cash flows, or what you sort of anticipate given like the current lockdown and whatnot. I'm just wondering if you have be able to speak to kind of how the impact on that.
So sorry, I'm not perfectly clear on what exactly you're asking me.
So I don't know, like I'm sure like in Will, so the different revenue streams of the students, like how have the I guess how was this current lockdown sort of impacted our revenues and whatnot in terms
Right.
of ultimately cash flow?
So with regards to cash flow, as you saw in that previous graph, I can switch to it if you wish. The cash flow situation is very healthy for the Students' Union, which is something that our team has been working pretty diligently to get us in a position like that. And as odd as it sounds, it is a silver lining of the pandemic that we've been spending a lot less money because we're not in person. In terms of our business operations, largely the hospitality department is looking very positively as though it's going to finish the fiscal year still with a loss, but nowhere near the projected loss that we had assumed going into last year. And with all the unknowns with the lockdown, we weren't really sure how that was going to play itself out. So a big shout out to the hospitality team under the leadership of GS Balscanthan and ultimately the students at Wilfrid Laurier University for allowing the hospitality team to continue to serve them at a very affordable rate. But ultimately speaking, the financial situation of the Students' Union has been very positive as a result. We did take steps to kind of mitigate some of the financial impact on students through fees. There was a variety of fees that were not assessed to our undergraduate student population as a result of not being able to access certain programs. But at the same time, we were not necessarily able to spend at the same rate as we would in a normal year. So ultimately, once the financial audit starts for this past fiscal year, which I believe that process starts just after the August long weekend, it's likely that our financial situation will come out that we'll have an even more significant surplus than what I presented. And then we can start to have discussions on how that money should be allocated as well. So there's lots of opportunity to start giving back to the community in a very meaningful way that will help improve the lives of students, undergraduate students, especially in the Laurier community.
Director Loachi.
Sorry, just a follow-up question regarding the banners. Can the amount that we're spending be reassessed? And I was just wondering if you guys have kind of reached out to students and seen what the response is to that expenditure for those banners.
So that expense was approved by last year's board of directors and has been communicated to our partners in the community communications, public affairs and marketing department of the university, which is what CPAM stands for. So that money's already been committed. We have not reached out to students. That the board of directors is elected to represent students in that regard. And so that went through a vigorous kind of discussion back and forth back on April 9th. So that decision, as far as my understanding is final. Students will be consulted and will be active participants in the selection of that art, etc. We think it'll be a really engaging piece and continuing the work that last year's Brantford Student Executive Leadership Team did with one of the more successful social programs that the Students' Union did all year.
Hope that answers your question, Director Loachi.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I just have one other question if no one else has one. Just kind of like to, if you could possibly reiterate to the board. So all these kind of like one-time expense items have already been approved, right? So is there any opportunity for this current board to reassess them or no?
I mean, theoretically, we could do a deep dive if you really wanted to, but there have been certain commitments that have been made, so they're not necessarily all up for grabs. And ultimately, it was an operational recommendation on that operational funds. So
Okay, no, perfect. No, I just wanted to make sure that the board is aware of, like, is there still some room for additional discussion? But
So again, to reiterate, once the audit is complete for last year's fiscal books, there will be plenty of time to have a strategic conversation on how those funds should be reallocated.
oh, and I'm looking so much forward to that. Okay, awesome. Does anyone else have any questions for Phil? If not, then I'd like to thank him for his comments. Now we're going to move on to next agenda item. So this is the 2021 board calendar. If everyone could go to page number 34 out of 48 of their agenda package, and I can share my screens to help with the explanation. So this is my overall plan for the upcoming board in the spring semester. So right now we are at our May meeting here. And in terms of presentations, as you can see in the agenda package, we have someone from the Indigenous Affairs Center to present to us some information about the Indigenous land acknowledgement, as other ways of how us as board members can be aware of these issues too as well. Upcoming in terms of plans is that for the next meeting in June, I'd like to have strike the ownership linkage committee in terms of trying to do something for students in the spring term. This was originally supposed to be for this meeting here, but because of some additional last minute agenda items, I decided that it would be prudent to move it to next meeting to not overwhelm students, overwhelm you directors. But during the meantime, between now and June, we can obviously have a discussion in our own time about what we think is the best way to reach out to our ownership. In addition to that, we're having the plan to have, depending if Chris Turner is ready, regarding his presentation on the governance budget. And this was another thing that a presenter that the board could be interested in, pending what the direction everyone wants to go into, and Phil could speak a little bit more to it. Something about the Laurie micro-credential concept being tentatively at the moment presented by the Vice Provost, Dr. Mary Wilson. If anyone has questions about that, they're more than happy to reach out to me or Phil. In July, the idea is to invite the Dean of Students, Adam and Kate, or the Pandemic Recovery Group represented by Dan Dawson, to speak about additional updates on the COVID disruption, hopefully in terms in regards to the upcoming fall semester, whether or not it will be in person or not, or what the dimension of that will be like. And finally, for the August meeting, we're going to be preparing to be entering the fall semester. And in that regard, I'd like to have the board directors think about something that we can do for orientation week. This will be very much linked back to the ownership linkage discussion that we're going to have. And that's what I have strictly planned for spring. This schedule is more than flexible to kind of like accommodate, any interest from, directors, if they have to invite other presenters who they think that could lend some useful insights and information for the board. Above here, you can see the Dic Modeling Schedule and how it's going to work. So in the spring term, we are going to need to strike committees to monitor all these executive limitations and governance policies here. And likewise, the same thing for the fall and the winter. Just kind of taking and moving on the next page, it kind of explains the, actually not the next page, later on, in our discussion, this type of schedule and structure will be explained in more detail. But for now, does anyone have any questions regarding this? If not, then I'm going to proceed to the next agenda item.
Sorry, I do have one quick question.
Oh, yes.
And forgive me if it was stated earlier. UA department for September, are we getting the mayor or MPP, or Are we still figuring that
Oh,
out?
so for that one, they were figuring out because that traditionally was actually they were invited to the board because of homecoming or HOCO, right? Obviously, that's not going to happen. So it's the debate on whether or not we actually need to come in, because usually the board, kind of gets involved with operations and kind of student union volunteers, like door knocking, right? If any of you guys remember that. I know it seems like a lifetime ago at this point, right? It was really fun when I did it, but so that's why we're still debating on whether or not it's actually necessary. Hopefully that explains your question. All right.
It answers my question. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other questions by directors? If not, then we're going to move on to we're going to move on to the board social media discussion, which I'm sure all of you guys are super excited for. So I'm just going to quickly explain a couple updates on my end, and then I'll leave it up to the board for you to decide what direction you want to take. So what I've done is that I had some really excellent discussions and a meeting with Megan, from the SU, and we kind of decided that originally my plan was to create entirely independent board social media channels. And I still think that that's still an option, but really want to kind of realize and leverage the pre-existing outreach that the SU platforms have. So I thought it would be an amazing idea to kind of work with Megan and create that synergy between the board and operations, because at the end of the day, we're still one big team. So if you saw in my agenda package, that was the first post that I spoke with Megan to help us get out, and I think it looks pretty amazing to kind of sum up kind of the vision. But that and like I sent it to all of you guys ahead of time, and it seemed that all of you liked it. Kind of moving on, I know that there was a great deal of interest, in terms of striking a board social media committee. And in that regard, I kind of want to leave it up to your discussion, but I would think that the primary purposes of this committee would be, for those directors to kind of channel the what the message that all of us as a board kind of want to present, and that the committee would be in charge of managing the social media accounts. So then they would have the access to the passwords for the IG account, or if the board wants to create a Twitter account, that one as well too. Ideally, I want to minimize it to as the bare minimum of directors necessary. So then just in case if there's any issues, we can kind of link those back to just a certain number of directors, if that makes sense. I think it's a bad habit to spread the password for any of our accounts to too many people. So with that being said, I kind of want to open up the floor to directors for your suggestions and what you guys want in terms of your vision. Director Loachi.
Sorry about that. I started talking before I hit the unmute button. So Director May and I have been discussing with each other forming a social media committee, and we have some ideas we'd like to present to you guys. Mackenzie, did you want to go first?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll just find my notes.
The floor is yours now.
Okay, so the first thing we wanted to do for our social media accounts was grow our following for our Instagram and Facebook. And then we wanted to expand our platforms. So expanding into other areas such as Twitter and stuff. And then we wanted to keep consistent design and colors across ours. So like using the same colors for all of our posts, and then putting a link tree in our social media bio so we can have like multiple things linked. So you click on one link and maybe we even have like the board meeting link in there so students can easily access it and the various resources we have.
Thank you, Director May. So there's just a few more points we have. So we want to create a Twitter. We see a lot of feedback coming from Spotted, and we think it's best that we are accessible to students so that we can hear their critiques and their voices and react accordingly. We also are looking into phasing out Facebook. A lot of us have noticed that younger years, year 1 and 2, they're not really using Facebook group chats the way upper years are. They're using a lot of Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. And then we'd also like to create a calendar for posting schedules because no one likes when a page is just spamming them with a million posts. We want to make sure they're spread out so that people are fully absorbing the content that we're presenting to them. We'd also like to have our social media accounts on the SU site. When we were looking around the other night, we noticed that the SU has its main social media pages, their ats on the website. So we'd like to have our ad up there. And then we'd also like to just overall promote what the board is doing, make sure students are fully aware so that they know where their money is going.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Director Loachi. Director Vale?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, I just, to echo what Director May and Director Loachi and yourself as chair, I agree with this proposal. I think it's the right direction. And the one suggestion that I would maybe offer as well is the idea of streaming our meetings through the Zoom streaming system to the Facebook page or YouTube or some sort of derivative thereof, as I think that would also help to, ensure that really that help further enhance our transparency and really further engage students so that they know and see in real time, what's going on. I think back to a couple of years ago, back when we were in person and well before I was on the board, I remember I used to watch those Facebook live streams all the time. And I think it's really, it really engages students and really help them understand, what are the decisions that we're making? What are we doing as a board? And so I think that might be an idea to consider as well, potentially.
Okay, awesome. Before I get to you, Director Swinton, I just want to ask Phil, Ian, is this something that is possible the board could implement?
Sorry, what specifically, the streaming part?
Yeah, the streaming on like a platform, like live streaming
Yep,
on YouTube,
That,
right?
that should be reasonably easy to achieve, yes.
Okay, awesome. And also another point, to what Director Loachi, Director May was speaking of, I think that a lot of those ideas are great, and regardless of what the results of this discussion is, I think this will definitely warrant another additional discussion with Megan. For me, I definitely want to make sure that when I made any requests on behalf of the board to her to post stuff, it was done in a very structured manner. So then we, to address that we're not spamming people, and also to give the team time to actually create these posts too as well. Okay, now Director Symington.
I just want to say I thought Director May's and Director Lowachi's ideas were really good. And to piggyback off Director Vale's idea, I'm not sure how feasible this would be, but the idea of somehow streaming through the board's Instagram page would probably be a good idea, given the fact that Instagram, when you do go live on Instagram, it goes to the very front of your stories. So if you were to follow the board page, you would, like, regardless of whether there's a board meeting going on or not, if you were to go on Instagram at that time, you would be able to see the fact that there is a board meeting live, and that might, garner a little more interest in terms of accessibility of going into a board meeting, and even just dropping in for 5 minutes just to kind of see what we do or see what we're talking about or something like that.
That's a great suggestion, Director
To
Symington.
piggyback onto what you just said, Shane, there are like websites that you can cross live stream on, so it's definitely something that is possible.
Okay, yeah, then I think that's definitely.
If we can live stream on Facebook, we can also live stream across Instagram, Twitter, everything, and it's just all with like a click of a button. So it should be very feasible to do.
I think that's something worth looking into. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Cheers.
Director Bothwell, just a follow up to your question. So the platform you're referring to, would we also be able to stream on like Twitch or something? Just get it on as many platforms as possible?
I actually don't 100% know off the top of my head. I did a marketing course a couple weeks ago and they sent me the link to it. So I'll just have to dig through and find it. But I know there was quite a few different options. So yeah, I could definitely investigate it and let you know.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I really like the idea of streaming the meetings.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
One thing that caught my ear from earlier was the fact that, or the idea, sorry, of sort of phasing out Facebook, if I heard that right. My only question to that is, if we were to go back in person, where would we put the board meetings? Because if I'm not mistaken, they would usually go on Facebook after they were live streamed.
So in that regard, we would still post the meeting links and post the recordings on Facebook. But in terms of phasing Facebook out, we just kind of like, we wouldn't be as active on Facebook as we would be compared to Instagram. That's kind of the phase out we're talking about, where we're not completely shutting it down, but it's still there for those who want it, but it's not going to be our focus.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was the only thing that really came to my mind. And maybe if that's the case, then Facebook would be a reliable platform to just sort of go through board meetings, and then, you know, board meetings wouldn't be in addition to a bunch of other posts that might get lost. So that sounds great.
Another suggestion that I do have for that is that we could easily make a board link tree and have every single link to board meeting recordings in one spot. And that's something that like they would all be in one spot and super easy to find, and it wouldn't be lost in a stream of something as well. So, and like that link tree could just be like a link in our Instagram bio, and it can have like links to board meetings and links to relevant things from the board.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Director Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess just to comment regarding the Facebook aspect, I certainly, you know, get where you're coming from in terms of like that phasing Facebook piece out, but I think in some ways it's still, I would argue, still a relevant platform. So I think like one option might be, and this is just a suggestion, you know, using Hootsuite or some sort of something along those lines, and maybe really cross posting. So I think it'd still be good to be somewhat active, but like I said, maybe not super active, but I still think it's good to have a presence on the Facebook as well, because I do know that and it's still a widely used platform, maybe not as much newer students, but I think by and large, you know, third and fourth year students are still using it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And regarding the live stream, I believe we can still stream on all the those platforms simultaneously at the click of a button through Zoom directly even.
Perfect.
Suggestion.
So sorry, just in regards to your question about Facebook, yes, I do acknowledge that it is still a relevant platform for some people. That's why we're not doing a complete cut. They will still see some of our posts, most likely about meetings and events, but things like director intros, director birthday wishes, anything like that, we would keep to the Instagram.
And just on that point, in my conversation with Megan, all those type of more fun, whimsical, and info about the board, that would be our prerogative to do. The only thing I'm asking operations to help us with is just more for like the generic, like letting students know that the board meetings are here and some big ticket items. Moving on to Director Mohammed.
Yeah, no, just to jump in about what Director Sinati said, Facebook is still very useful, and rather than not using Facebook at all, and I know that's where we post a lot of the streams, especially if Director Loichi and Director May would be in charge of the social medias, they could just split it and put the same live stream on our Instagram, because there is a way to do that, as well as put it on Facebook, and just kind of update both, but really push the Instagram, because a lot of these students are on Instagram, where they only really check their Facebook for like sublets and other school related things.
Okay, I'm going to just step in here. So I think that kind of the vision of what the board is pretty straightforward, and that if we're just discussing about which platform is more effective, I think that that's something that can be done on a later date. And if that's yeah, so definitely one thing that I would definitely highly strongly remind all directors is that of the in the agenda package I included a section. So this is GP2CB, sorry, 3B, So, board members recognizing that there's the limitations and that one board member doesn't speak for all board members. So I love how this is kind of like the nature of the conversation that we're having. I just want to kind of move on. So does the board feel that having a social media committee is necessary? Is that kind of a general consensus? I see a couple nods. And if that's the case, before I kind of move on that, I'll let Director Bothwell, would you like to have a comment?
No, sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
No problem. Okay, in that case, with some conversations, it is my recommendation to have 2 people sit on the committee, one Waterloo and one Brantford student, to have that both sides of representation. But if the board feels that more people should be on the committee, then that is your prerogative. But that being said, I want to remind people that this committee is not having a monopoly on the message of what we're trying to do. They're just the ones who are going to be the real like administrators of the board accounts. And you as directors as a whole we still need to approve of every single message that is going to come out to it, to public. Director Loachi.
Yes, just on that comment about committee size and stuff. So it would be 2 representatives, as Andrew has said. And then in terms of size, I think between 4 and 6 members who can provide input would be good, but obviously things will still go through the whole board before it gets posted.
So are you suggesting that the committee should be a size of 4 to 6?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Ian.
Yeah, it might be worth first, given all of the different input and ideas, it might be worth first striking an ad hoc committee to put together a proposal about the scope of the board social media activity. That way, that committee can make sure you're referencing back to board policy, that the parameters of this particular initiative match the directives that the board gives itself in terms of interacting with members, and you can kind of present the rest of the group with a proposal with some of these pieces fine-tuned. And from there, that might be a good opportunity to kind of define what the final committee might look like.
I think that is a fantastic option. Kind of picking your brains a little bit, continuing that. Yeah. How big do you think this committee should be historically that these ad hoc committees are?
Just the same as any other standing committee. Sorry for the noise.
No problem.
And noise maker.
Is it because I have the meetings assigned to a time when you're supposed to give them attention?
Yeah, well, there are a couple birthdays this weekend. So.
Yeah. So do you think of having a committee about four directors would be sufficient in this case?
Yeah, I mean, for the initial ad hoc committee, just to put the proposal together, I think gathering some of the people in that standard size, and then that group could make some recommendations in terms of how to move forward with the permanent structure for the year. I think the one thing I would also kind of encourage the committee to think about is what happens if next year the board is not as enthusiastic about social media engagement as this group is. That's often the challenge from year to year. So I think continuity, as well as what that transition from team to team might look like, should also be factored in.
No, those are some good points. And to kind of like answers Ian's concerns to everyone, that's why I had the conversation, want to work closely with operations to make sure that there was some sort of structure, even if we if we don't have a board next year that's interested. But with that case, is everyone agreeable to the idea of having an ad hoc committee to discuss what a social media committee will look like in the future? Okay, perfect. In that case, I'm going to open up a ad hoc committee election. So I think it would be prudent to at least have one Brantford director on this still, and I think the rest can be Waterloo directors. So just kind of just reminding everyone that in order, oh, yes, Bill.
From a quick procedural, wouldn't you have to make a motion to make that ad hoc
Oh.
committee and formally have that vote on the record? And then once you have the committee, then you can go into nominations, etc.
Okay, that's a fair point. Thank you. Well, this is where I'm treading into new waters too, so you can see where I'm still a bit green in some areas. Okay, so can I have a motion on the table to create an ad hoc committee of 1 Brantford director and 3 Waterloo, at least 1 Brantford director, to discuss what proper social media committee will look like with the board. Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Shandok. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thanks. I think other than that, I think it's a great starting point to kind of flesh out this further.
Yes, just kind of want to reiterate, yes, at least 1 director from each campus. Okay, would anyone like this? Would anyone like to have a discussion on the matter? If not, yes, Phil.
Sorry that I had my hand still up. My bad.
No problem, Executive Director. Director Loachi.
Sorry, so just to clarify, the ad hoc has been, the motion has been approved, and then that
Not-
ad hoc committee,
Oh, sorry.
would
didn't mean
that
to
ad
interrupt you.
hoc committee then set out parameters for the administrators of the social media?
In other words, I suppose, yes, the ad hoc would kind of like, see what the best direction is for the board in order to create a proper social media committee in that case.
And then a permanent social media committee would be formed based on the ad hoc's recommendation.
Yes, that would be the idea.
Okay.
Okay.
And when would the nominations for the ad hoc committee take place?
Immediately after this motion, if it passes. Okay, any other discussion? If not, we're going to the vote. All those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director Iqbal,
I approve.
Director Loachi,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Mohammed,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Motion passes unanimous consent. So now the ad hoc committee has been struck with 4 members. We'll now open the floor to nominations. In order for a director to be added onto the committee, they have to be nominated by one of their peers. Director Vale.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Director May.
Yes. Mr. Oh, Miss. Oh. Director May, do you stand?
Yes.
Okay. Vice Chair Sneedy,
May I nominate 2 directors or just 1?
just 1.
I'd like to nominate Director Shandoke.
Director Shandok, do you stand?
Yeah, I do.
Director Bothwell,
I'd like to nominate Director Loachi.
Director Loachi, do you stand?
Yes. Can I make a nomination? now,
Yes,
or-
Director Loachi,
I'd like to nominate Director Bothwell.
Director Bothwell, do you stand?
Yes.
Okay. Director Bothwell,
Oh, yes. Oh, sorry. Is my hand still raised? Whoopsies.
yes, no problem. Are there any other nominations? Just letting you know that if we do, then we'll have to enter into elections with beautiful, lovely opening statements, question periods, and closing statements. If not, then can I get a motion on the table for Director May, Director Shandok, Director Loachi, and Director Bothwell to be acclaimed on the social media ad hoc committee? Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Then any discussion on the matter? If not, then going to votes. All those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shan. Oh, so in this case, because you're serving on the
Oh,
committee,
I
you have to
abstain.
yes.
Well, I do approve of myself, but
Okay. You abstain. Director Shandok,
I abstain.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director Iqbal,
I approve.
Director Loachi,
I abstain.
Director May,
I abstain.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Mohammed,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
The motion passes 7-0 to 4. Okay, so the committee is struck, and I will reach out to those directors serving on the ad hoc committee shortly after the meeting. Now moving on to our next agenda item is the approval of the summer board meeting schedule. So after collecting everyone's schedule, these are some board meetings that I think work with everyone. However, if you have any issues with them, then please, this is your time. So Director Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just would like to see if we could amend the schedule for the August to the week before to Thursday, August 5th, 2021, in recognition that the current date as well as the following week are currently set as the official final examination period for the spring 2021 or exams.
Okay, no, that's a good point. Does anyone else have any comments to make regarding the proposed spring meeting schedule? Okay, if not, then can I get a motion on the table?
Wait, sorry, Andrew.
yes.
Where is this?
Oh, this is page 37
Okay. I was like gonna say.
out of 48.
Okay. Never mind. We're good.
Okay, we're good. Is everyone clear with the dates then? I just want to make sure. This is very important. I want to make sure that we give not just ourselves, but the operations team a clear head of time to prepare for everything. Okay, that being said, can I get a motion on the table to adopt the proposed spring summer meeting schedule? Motion by Director Shandok, seconded by Director Bothwell. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? Yes, Director Vale. Sorry,
I just wanted to clarify that we did amend this to the
yes,
5th.
my
then?
apologies.
Okay.
Let me reiterate the policy. Can we have a motion on the table to adopt the proposed spring summer meeting schedule with the amendment to change the period for meeting to August 5th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. That'd be motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Shandok. Would you like to speak to your motions?
No, thank you.
Any discussion on matter this time? Nope. Okay, awesome. All those in favor, Director Bothwell? Director Bothwell?
Sorry, I approve.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Director Shandok.
Oh, I approve.
Director Del Giudice.
I approve.
Director Iqbal.
I approve.
Director Loachi.
I approve.
Director May.
I approve.
Director McCarthy.
I approve.
Director Mohammed.
I approve.
Director Symington.
I approve.
Director Vale.
I approve.
And Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Motion passes unanimous consent. Now on to the next agenda is the governance monitoring calendar and monitoring schedule. So this is just so we need to approve this. So if you guys can go down to page 38 and specifically 39 of it. Let me share my screens to kind of give you guys all a better understanding. So this is the annual governance planning schedule. So right now, We are in year 4, so yay, we're at the end of another inspection cycle. So as we kind of go on later on in the agenda items with the DCI committees, it is as a result of because we due to the governance planning schedule, these are the policies that we do need to review. And in further detail here, in GP2H, this actually tells you the monitoring report schedule. So as you can see here, the ones that you just approved during in the consent agenda was the ones regarding the monitoring reports of myself. So that would be in period 1 here, if that makes sense. With that information being put on the table, can I get a motion by the board to approve of the governance calendar and monitoring schedule as presented? A motion by Director Del Giudice, seconded by Director Loachi. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? Okay. If not, then all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director Iqbal,
I approve.
Director Loachi,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Mohammed,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneed.
I approve.
The motion passes unanimous consent. Now we get on to my favorite part, the committee elections. So we have 3 committees here. The Student Life Levy Brantford, which is one of my favorite committees. There used to be 3. Poke, poke, sad face. You know, but unfortunately, as a result of the election, we only have one, which is the Brantford Committee. In regards to that one there, it'll be claimed by 2 Brantford directors, which we have, and 1 Waterloo director and the chair, which is myself there. In regards to direct inspection committees, those can be any 2 directors, regardless of campus, can sit on those, and they'll be you know, claimed by myself, the chair, and those 2 aforementioned directors. Any questions before we get into the committee elections? With that being said, let's get into the nominations for the Student Life Levy Brantford. Director Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to nominate Vice Chair Sanidi.
Vice Chair Sanidi, do you stand?
Yes, I do.
Okay, is there any one else who'd like to be nominated to the committee? Director Symington.
I'd like to nominate. Oh, never mind. I retract my hand and nothing.
You retract your hand. Are you sure you don't want another election season here?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Okay. In that case, if there's no other nominations, can I get a motion on the table to acclaim Vice Chair Cindy, Director May, and Director Iqbal to the Student Life Levy Brantford Committee? Motion by Director McCarthy, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, yeah, no.
Sorry, just one second. I believe that the Brantford Student Life Levy Committee is on page 41. Could everyone just confirm that it's there? Page 41 of
Yeah, it
45?
is.
Sorry, just give me 1 second, guys.
I think on the last page there, though, it's the signatures for Samid, still not you, Andrew.
Yeah, I that was an issue that was brought up but I spoke with Phil about it, and that's not an issue in regards to our discussion.
I've just got a
Okay.
quick question.
Yes.
What is the Podcast Accelerator Scholarship, and why is there a question mark next to it?
Could you please let me know and where you see this?
Page 41 under referendum question 2. In the second paragraph, it states, do you support the renewal of the student life levy, a fee that enhances students' life through project funding such as the Student Center multi-purpose room and commuter lounge?
Okay, I see that. In that case, then I believe that's just a reference to a previous like previous examples of student life levy Brantford projects, if that makes sense, to kind of give students an understanding of what the fund is used for. I think I have made a mistake. I think I accidentally proceeded to the election for the Brantford SLL without approving of the agreement. So I believe that in this case, I need to approve it. I'm sorry if I have to call you on this one. Could you just help me walk through this?
So basically, when we went to referendum in the January, sorry, time has lost all meaning. The referendum question for the student life levy in Brantford passed. And so as a result, the then existing agreement expired as of April 30th. So this is the new agreement that starts May 1st and ultimately will take us into the future with the student life levy in Brantford. So we didn't need to review it because the chair and chief governance officer is a signatory on that agreement. The board needs to agree to the agreement with Development Alumni Relations in order to get his signature on there.
Okay,
and we can't, and then PJ and I can't sign it without him. So
okay, so we need to get that done first before we can strike the committee, correct?
So not necessarily, like the committee's been struck, that's fine. But until the board approves the agreement, there's no actual committee to be on, right? And technically. So basically the board should have reviewed the package, the student life levy agreement that's in the agenda package. Then we would make a motion to approve the agreement as presented. And then there would be a discussion on it and we could answer any questions that the board would have. And then we would move into voting on whether or not we approve the agreement. And if we don't agree to the agreement, we need to be very clear as to why not, so that we can go back to Development Alumni Relations and get an agreement that the board will agree to.
Okay, my apologies. I assumed that it was kind of a given that was agreed on. My apologies, everyone, for kind of jumping the shark on this one here. But you know what? This is a good opportunity to kind of answer some questions about the fund. So, Victoria, I see your question in the chat there. The fund in terms of the scholarship one. This, I assume that it like is a student project to help fund something of this nature, but I don't remember seeing this during my time on it. Phil, do you remember the Podcast Accelerator Scholarship?
So I honestly, I don't recall. I'm sure it was a project that was approved by the Brantford Student Life Levy Committee. And ultimately the decision was made at the time of crafting the question for referendum. It was referenced as something that Brantford students in theory should have recognized.
Okay. Director Loachi?
Yeah, so speaking to that podcast scholarship, is there a way to make sure that that wasn't just a typo and that it's actually meant to be in the board package?
So I'm just going, I just want to make sure that we're talking about page 42 underneath the referendum question.
Yeah, so
all of that is presenting to you is the referendum question that was sent to the students on Brantford campus. That's literally word for word what every Brantford student would have seen when they went in to vote yes or no as to supporting that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so does anyone else have any questions regarding the SLL before I backtrack a little bit on my blatant error, unfortunately? If not, then Phil, help me guide me through this. So in this case, it would be like a motion for the board to approve of the SL agreement.
Right, we need somebody on the board to make a motion to approve the student life levy agreement as presented. Then we'll need a seconder.
Okay, awesome. Okay, sounds like a plan. Before we go, Director Bothwell, I saw that your hand was up.
Yeah, I just kind of like, I feel like I just keep circling back to this podcast thing, but if it's something that like should have been recognized by all Brantford students, like, can we just figure out what it actually is?
So
I just want to know what this
let's be clear. You guys are getting caught up in the wrong details of the agreement here. Happy to get you as much information as you want on that podcast, but it is a project that was approved by the Student Life Levy Committee in Brantford in years past. I can't honestly remember when, but we can definitely get that information and give you literally all of that information.
Okay.
There is an extensive package. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know. It just is weird to me that it was just phrased in the question as like something that should be widely known. So
I guess
that's fine.
Yeah.
To be fair, the most visible projects in Brantford so far have been a lot of the lounges, student lounges and commuter lounges and things of that nature. So I think that they were trying desperately to not just focus on lounges, because that fund definitely funds way more than just student lounges. And that's probably why that project was picked. So I'll do some research and dig it out, find out exactly what that project was, and happy to update it hopefully by the end of this meeting. And if I can't do it by then, I'll do it by the June meeting, I promise.
Okay, thank you.
I can follow up on that on your behalf, Director Bothwell.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Vale.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to put a motion forward to approve the agreement as presented.
Okay, perfect. Okay, motion by Director Vale, seconded by. I'd like to second the motion. Okay, seconded by Director Shandok. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Nope.
No, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Any discussion on the matter?
Will I have to abstain from this vote?
No, since technically speaking, we did not, this is not for the committee vote. This is just to approve the agreement. If there's no discussion, then all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve
Director
under the condition that I get that package.
perfect. I can promise you that. Shandok, Director Shandok. Do you approve?
Yep. Approve.
Thank you. Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director Iqbal,
I approve.
Director Loachi.
I approve on the condition of receiving the package as well.
Okay. Director May. Director May. I'll come back to her in this momentarily. Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Mohammed,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Going back to you, Director May, do you approve? Okay, in that case, then the motion passes as 10-0 with no vote from Director May. Now moving onward is going back to the committee elections. So I believe that in this case, Vice Chair Sneedy was nominated to be the Waterloo representative. So can I again get a motion on the table to acclaim Director May, Director Iqbal, and Vice Chair Sneedy for the Student Life Levy Brantford Committee. Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Any discussion on the matter? Director Loachi,
Just slow to take my hand. Sorry.
oh, okay, I assumed that then that was just a mistake. Sorry, do you have a question though, or no?
No, sorry, my computer was just being weird. I couldn't get the
No problem.
to go down.
If there's no discussion on the matter, then All those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director Iqbal.
Do I abstain from this one? I
Yes,
abstain.
you do. These things. Director Loachi,
I approve.
Director May. I think we lost Director May. Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Mohammed,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I abstain.
Going back to you, Director May. In that case, the vote passes 8-0-2 without Director May. Okay, next moving on to our CIC committees. So the first one that we have on the agenda is the Direct Inspection Committee for EL number 1. The same principle applies in terms of being nominated onto the committee. So now the floor is open to nominations. Remember, this is 2 directors regardless of campus. Director Symington.
This is EL1, right?
EL1, yes.
I'd like to nominate Director Chando.
Director Shando, do you stand?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Perfect. Director Bothwell.
I would like to nominate Director Vale.
Director Vale, do you stand?
I do.
You do. Director Symington, is your hand still up there?
My bad, forgot to take it down.
No worries. Any other nominations? As I see none, can I get a motion on the table to affirm Director Shandok and Director Vale to the Direct Inspection Committee EL number 1? Motion by Vice Chair Sneedy, seconded by Director Iqbal. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? If not, then all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I abstain.
Director Del Giudice,
Approve.
Director Iqbal,
I approve.
Director Loachi,
I approve.
you, Director May.
Sorry for that. I'm back. I approve.
Thank you, Director May. Welcome back. Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Mohammed,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I abstain.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Motion passes 9-2-0.
9-0-2.
9-0-2. Oh my goodness, thank you. Next, moving on to the Direct Inspection Committee GP2E. So now the floor is open to nominations. Vice Chair Sneedy.
I'd like to nominate Director Vale.
Director Vale, do you stand?
I do.
Do you stand? Would any other directors like to be nominated? The floor is open.
Can we just pick someone?
Um,
Or is that mean?
you can nominate a director that you see would provide the best benefit towards the board for this committee, if that's what you're asking.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Excellent. So
okay,
sorry, I'm going to back to the speakers list. Director Symington.
I'd like to nominate Director Sinetti. Pardon me, Vice Chair Sinetti.
Vice Chair Sinetti, do you stand?
Yes.
Okay. Any other nominations? Apologies for the interruption, Director Bothwell, but I had to go back to the speakers list there. But as I see no other nominations, can I get a motion on the table to claim Director Vale and Vice Chair Sneedy to the Direct Inspection Committee GP2E? Motion by Director Shandok, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? If not, then can I get a, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shandok,
Approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director Iqbal,
I approve.
Director Loachi,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Mohammed,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I abstain.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve, or I abstain, sorry.
Thank you. The motion passes 9-0 to 2. So thank you, everyone. And I'll be reaching out to all committees after this meeting in terms of getting started on the work. And now comes to one of my next favorite parts of this meeting. We have a wonderful guest speaker today to help talk to the board about Indigenous affairs and history and what us as a board can do to help and know. So I'd like to open the floor to Erin, who is so gratefully allocated her time and schedule for us for the next half an hour and a little bit. So I give you the floor.
Thank you so much. Sego, everyone. Erin Hodgson Yunyuts. Hello, my name is Erin Hodgson. I am the Indigenous Curriculum Specialist at Laurier. I'm an educational developer in teaching and learning. And I thank you very much for the welcome. I have been asked to back, which is very exciting. I was here last year around about this time to have a discussion with folks. And I was very, very generously asked to come again by, I know that you folks have certain ways of calling each other, but by Andrew and by Ezra, I don't know the titles. And I was very lost in all of that stuff you folks were doing. So I'm going to share my screen if that's all right with everyone. Can we see my screen? Are we good?
We're
Can we
good.
see it? Awesome. Okay. I don't know how many of you folks were here last year as opposed to this year. So I will be building on some of the content that I'm going to be showing to you. Just for a little bit of context, my job is to support faculty, staff, students, community members, basically anybody who reaches out to me who is looking to authentically create space for Indigenous ways of knowing and being. So that's my job. I connect with people, I create community with people, and I find the best way for them specifically to incorporate my way of knowing and my way of being into what we do at the institution. A couple of ground rules. There are no stupid questions. I would like everyone to ask any question that they have. I don't care how it sounds. If you don't think that you have the right language to say the question that you have, it doesn't matter to me. Ask your question anyways, use whichever language you have. If it's not correct, I will let you know, not in a mean way. And we can sort of work through it in that capacity. I do have a limited amount of time, so I am going to jump right in if that's all right with everyone. I am going to have to close my my view of all of you folks, and I'm also going to not therefore be able to see the chat. So I will come back to that. If you have questions, throw them in there. If you want to interrupt me anytime during this, I don't understand what you just said. Could you please reiterate? Feel free. There is no structure here. I'm not going to be in any way put out if you need to stop me or anything like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Thumbs. Cool. So we're going to start. I can't see anything. Hang on one second while I close you folks. Okay. So we're going to be talking about Beyond the Land Acknowledgement today. And I wanted to sort of work into this a little bit of information about allyship and how to walk alongside Indigenous people. One of the things that I would like you to keep in mind is that when I'm talking about culture, I am talking about culture the way that I view it. There is an overabundant amount of Indigenous people living in Canada. There are over 600 First Nations alone. We do not all do the same thing. We do not all practice the same culture. Even within our own cultural groups, things can be different because of our lived experience. I did not grow up on reserve. I grew up in an urban setting. So that is going to affect my way of knowing and being. So the first thing I want to do, and I know that you folks start with this, but I start my presentations the exact same way every single time I do them, with a land acknowledgement. I am currently sitting on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral peoples. I don't know if I talked to you folks about this last time I was here or not. what we're looking at right now is a form of colonial violence. And what I mean by that is that these are names that were never meant to be written down. Most Indigenous people on Turtle Island, which is what we call North America, pre-contact, were oral traditions. We did not have written forms of communication. So when Europeans came here, they used their foreign lettering system and they like crammed it into something that it didn't quite fit. So when you're reading these words, it doesn't really help give you a sense of how they're supposed to feel in your mouth or how they're supposed to sound, your tongue placement, your teeth placement, because they don't properly represent the words. So I have this little poll that I like to do. It's always a little funny. Hands up if you have, or react in some way if you have delivered a land acknowledgement at Laurier or in another capacity. Andrew's like, well, I do it all the time. Hands up if you've heard a land acknowledgement delivered at this institution or somewhere else in your time. Most of you will have, exactly. Hands up if you've heard a land acknowledgement delivered and the person who was delivering it had no idea how to say the names and it was super uncomfortable for everyone. Yeah.
2 hands up for that one.
Yeah. It's a very common thing, right? Because people think that just because it's written in a language that we have learned our entire lives, we should be able to read them. However, like I said before, these are crammed in, so it doesn't quite work. So my task for you folks is, if and when you are ever asked to deliver a land acknowledgement, reach out to an Indigenous person that you have in your sphere of influence. I am always available. Sit down and learn how to pronounce them properly. It is really an important step through colonization and through decolonization to understand these words the way that they were meant to be said. Did you have something you wanted to ask, Kiana?
Yeah, I did. I was actually going to ask if you had the time to kind of go through these pronunciations.
I can. I usually do when we were in person, and I would do these lectures in front of 300 students. It was always really fun because I get everyone to stand up. Right. And that gives you this sort of the standing up is just like this idea that it's important. And then I would do the repeat after me. So if you would all like to do that, please come off mute if you are available. Turn your cameras on if you are as well, because it's always fun to do this with a whole group of people. And we will have a little experiential learning session. How does that sound? Yeah, y'all thought you were just going to be doing like, governance things today. Nuh-uh, learning.
Yeah.
All right, stretch. Get a nice good stretch there. We've been sitting down for a year and a half. And I'm sure we've been sitting down all day. Oh, feel your bones, feel your body. Remember what it's like to move your body around, because I sort of forget. Okay, repeat after me. Haudenosaunee.
Haudenosaunee.
This is always really funny because no one is in sync. So I'm getting like snippets of it all over the place. It's always amazing. Haudenosaunee.
Haudenosaunee.
It helps if you get your hands in there sometimes, that little sort of thing.
Haudenosaunee.
Haudenosaunee. It helps to know where the inflections are, right? The Haudenosaunee.
The hand motion helps.
Right?
For sure.
Haudenosaunee. No, nobody's gonna say it now. Okay.
Haudenosaunee.
All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is Anishinaabe. So think about if you're going to say the word schnoz and you have that sort of like nasally feeling, like that it sort of just has that bit of a kick. That's what we're going to try to replicate here. So say Anishinaabe.
Anishinaabe.
Perfect. Anishinaabe.
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 Perfect. And then the last one is neutral, which is obviously not an Indigenous term. So I'm sure you all know how to say that. You can go back to turning your cameras off and muting yourself.
Are you sure?
Do you want to say neutral? Neutral.
Neutral.
Nice. What you may see is that other institutions in this area utilize the term Attawandaron instead of neutral. They are the same thing. One is the term that Europeans called them, and the other is what Indigenous nations called a group of people that no longer they are no longer an entity among themselves. They were absorbed into larger groups. So if you see Attawandaron, I know UW uses Attawandaron. If you see that, it's the same thing as neutral. Okay. I don't know why they did it. Like I said, I wasn't here when those decisions were made. Any questions or comments about the land acknowledgement before we move on?
Yes.
Yes.
So you were saying that we've just kind of thrown thrown a bunch of English letters together that weren't meant to come together in a written form. So
yeah, I mean, what I think about it in this way, right? If you go to Japan and you try to use a Germanic lettering system to represent Japanese words, it's not quite going to work because there's sounds within the one language and there's again, linguistical formations and stuff like that in the other language that don't quite fit, right? And that's what's happened here.
I guess what I'm asking is there a written version of these words that would be appropriate within the Indigenous culture? Like, do they have a?
There is, well, and this is okay. So I think what you're asking is there standardization in the way that it is presented? Is that what you're asking? And no, the answer is absolutely no. The Anishinaabe Nation. The Anishinaabe Nation is an entirely it is the largest by landmass nation within our country. It makes up most of Northern Ontario. But that doesn't mean that there's not Anishinaabe people living all over the place, and they all spell it and pronounce it slightly different because it's what makes sense to those areas at that moment. I know that, so Haudenosaunee people, and we're going to get to this in a minute, Haudenosaunee people are, we are binational. The line that exists between Ontario or between Canada and the United States, that was not here when we, before Europeans. Our traditional territory straddles both sides of that imaginary line. People in the upstate region of New York State, in the Finger Lakes region, there's a lot of Haudenosaunee people that live there still, and they represent Haudenosaunee starting with an R. So that's going to give you a sense of the different ways that people, like the regional differences in dialect and how people hear things and then say things. So we say Haudenosaunee, they would say Haudenosaunee, but it's the same word, it's just reflected differently depending on the regionality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it would be kind of like how each region has different slang. So like if I tried to Toronto slang in Waterloo, it might not communicate effectively.
Yeah, and think about it also as like accents and regional accents, right? Regional differences in the way that people speak. So on the West Coast, if you meet a West Coast person and you meet an East Coast person, you're going to know the difference. It's the same kind of thing, right? We all speak with this, we all utilize the same letters to speak. We all just say it slightly different.
Okay,
good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. This is a map of the Haldeman Tract. I think most of you may know the Haldeman Tract at this point. I'm going to go relatively quickly through it. The reason why we need to know about this is because we are on the Haldeman, well, our university is, I'm assuming many of you are, on the Haldeman Tract right now. It is 950,000 acres of land that was given to the Mohawk people in their service of the Revolutionary War by the British. So the story goes, we had our physical homes in the upstate region of the Finger Lakes of New York State. The British and the now the Americans got into a fight. The British came to us and said, hey, can you fight with us? Because we cannot win this war. We don't have enough physical bodies on this continent. My people said, the Haudenosaunee people said, sure, we'll go fight with you. And then obviously we lost. We couldn't stay there anymore because it was the worst breakup ever. It's like trying to live with an ex. You can't stay in that territory because you lost. So the British people said, come with us. We will give you 6 miles on either side of the Grand River from its source to its mouth to be your new homeland. Less than 5% is in Mohawk hands today. The entire green thing is the Haldeman Tract. The orange part toward the bottom is where Six Nations of the Grand River is today. Less than 5%. Things like mismanagement of funds, shady backdoor deals, outright theft, and then finally the reserve system, which forced Indigenous people onto segregated plots of land away from settlers. So the reason why we need to know this is, first of all, we are all on stolen land, and we need to recognize that. We need to know what that means and how to act on these lands. Six Nations the Haudenosaunee Traditional Council, which is the hereditary chiefs of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, earlier in, what month are we in? This month, earlier this month, they held a press conference and they said that they are putting a moratorium on any building along the Grand River, that it's not going to happen anymore because of the large amount of pollution that those things have overtaken in the last little while. So there's a moratorium put on that. I don't know how that's going to go, but it runs the entire length of the Grand River. So think about how close we are to the Grand River, how close Brantford is to the Grand River, and what that's going to, excuse me, what that's going to mean for our communities and how that is going to be interpreted by different people in different ways. These are things that are going to be coming up in the next little while. And those of you who are based in Brantford, you are probably going to end up seeing quite a bit of this because I'm assuming that particularly once COVID finishes and we can be back face to face, a lot of these industry things, buildings are going to start happening again. And there's going to be some problems with that. So any questions about the Haldeman Tract before we continue? Cool. This is a wampum belt. I'm going to show you two wampum belts today. I'm sure you've seen them before. If you haven't, listen real close because I'm going to go quickly because I'm sure we're running out of time. Andrew or Ezra, could you give me give me 5-minute warning so I can wrap it up when it's time? Could you do me that? That's solid. Thank you. This is a wampum belt. Even though we did not have what I'm looking for? We didn't have oral traditions. We didn't have written, or we were oral traditions. We didn't have written forms of communication. That doesn't mean we didn't have ways to hold our information for future generations. What we had was these visual representations, which are called wampum belts. It's WAMPUM if you want to write it down. There are millions of them out there. This one here has been on this land since before contact. This has existed as a treaty between two sovereign nations on this land since before Europeans came here. This one is called the dish with one spoon. And it covers a vast amount of land, so much that I can't, just Google it, it's huge. This was created between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people, two of the individual nations that are listed in our land acknowledgement. Historically, we did not get along. Historically, we did really awful things to each other. We were at war for a very, very long time. Even though we were two sovereign nations at war, we still recognized that we had to come together and understand how we were going to engage with the land in a good way. So we created the dish with one spoon. The dish with one spoon has 3 tenets to it. The purple, I don't know what color it's showing up on your computers, but the dark piece in the middle is supposed to be purple. It represents a dish that we all have to feed ourselves from, or the land that we have to sustain ourselves from. There's 3 pieces to it. The first piece is that we should only take what we need from the dish, or we should only extract what we need from the land for our own sustenance. The second is we should ensure that there's something left in the dish for other people, or we should not take all food sources and leave other people to starve. The third piece is to keep the dish clean, or to ensure that the land that we all have to survive on is kept in good working order. Andrew.
I definitely remember you talking about this last year, but I want to kind of ask again, right? Could you speak to the significance of the colors, the white and the purple? I remember that when the British came in, purple is the royal color, so they just made all their wampum belts purple, but that was not the right thing. I just wanted to ask you that again this year.
Yeah, so it's made from it historically is made from a natural product, right? So it's made from a shell. It's called a quahog shell. And if you've seen quahog shells, it's mostly white with just a little bit of purple. So it didn't make sense to utilize so much to be able to get that purple color. So again, it's about ensuring that you're only taking really what you need from the land and not doing it just because it looks pretty, right? You will see others. We have the Hiawatha belt, which is the Six Nations belt. It is all purple. The reason for that is because Haudenosaunee people, we really jam on purple. It is our favorite color. It means a lot to us. So it makes sense that there would be so much purple in that wampum. Yeah. But it is about, the ability to be able to, and, to extract that from the land in a good way. If you have a shell and most of it is white and only a little bit at the bottom is purple, you want to use that in a good way, right? So it goes back to the 2 row, only taking what you need. It's a good question. Thank you, Andrew. Any other questions? So the reason I show you this, consider for a second what war would look like at this point in our shared history if the 2 nations, or however many nations, are engaging in conflict, if they first took care of the land, if their first priority was to ensure that the land was kept in good working order, how different war would look at this point. Also, treaties do not expire. They don't have expiration dates on them. Whether they're written on parchment or they're visual expressions like this, they do not expire. As people who benefit from living on this land, we are all treaty people, and we all at least need to know what the treaties are and then do our best to adhere to them. The second one I want to show you, this one's pretty cool. This one you might have more knowledge of or seen before. This is called the Two Row Wombum. This is the first wampum belt that was ever created between Europeans and Indigenous people. It was created with the Dutch in the early 1600s. They were here under the East India Trading Company, making money off of the stuff that we had because Europe didn't have any more stuff because I used it all up. We went to them as the Haudenosaunee people and we said, hey, we recognize you're not leaving. We need to have a good understanding of how this relationship is going to go. So the two of us created the Two Row Wombum. The narrative around this is that one purple strip represents Indigenous people in our canoes. The other purple strip represents Europeans and their tall ships. And the whole thing is the river of life that we are going to travel down together in harmony without interfering with each other. The only thing I remember from grade 10 math, two parallel lines will never meet, regardless of how long they go. And that is the tenet here, that we are not supposed to bisect into each other and crash into each other, but learn how to live together in harmony. So we created this understanding with the Dutch in the early part of the 1600s. Then when the French and the English came here at separate times, we also offered them that friendship and that treaty, and they said that they would adhere to it as well. Clearly, that's not how it went. So what is your job as individuals who benefit from living on this land? What is your responsibility to ensure that we create a better relationship moving forward for the next generation? I give to you a little discussion about allyship and how to walk alongside Indigenous people. This is all brand new. This is the stuff that I threw together for this specifically. I want to talk a little bit about what an authentic ally looks like before we jump in. Allyship has really become this sort of badge that people wear in the last little while to show that they're one of the good guys. You know, you put your badge on, it says, I'm an ally, ask me how. And it makes people think, okay, you're a good person. But the problem is that allyship term has really been manipulated into something that it's really not supposed to be. And we need to get back to authentic allyship. So this is the fancy worded part. We'll get to more like concrete how-tos in a minute. But I wanted to offer this to you first. Authentic allies, first of all, they resist individual product-driven constructs that exploit Indigenous peoples' language and culture. They are those who recognize their privilege and are willing to use that privilege to assist others. It requires a need to be of service without allowing your personal need to get in the way. And as an authentic ally, you need to expect resistance and recognize that it is not personal, but a byproduct of historical harmful policies created to disconnect Indigenous peoples from our culture. Basically, what that means is if you're trying to engage with an Indigenous person or an Indigenous organization and they ghost you, don't take it personally. It's probably not something, well, reflect on what you were asking because it might be something about that, but also consider that, you know, first of all, Indigenous people we're full up. We are very we are very few and far between within the academy, which means that we get asked to do a lot of things. Consider that we have a lot of responsibilities to our communities and we just don't have the time. And consider that there's a lot of fear about engaging with non-Indigenous people to give of yourself because it's a very vulnerable place to be. So I have a few documents here that I would like to point out to you. The first one here, this is a Laurier specific one. This is the Indigenous Allyship Toolkit. This was created a number of years ago in the Office of Indigenous Initiatives, and it is available to look at online. Now, it is it was a grad student that wrote it, so they were trying to use all of their fancy words, and it's very academic in its writing. However, it does have some really great stuff. It talks about being an ally is a relationship of respect. It says that the reconciliation of historical and contemporary wrongdoings, it talks about the reconciliation of historical and contemporary wrongdoings, and that the ratification of inequitable colonial systems need to happen. It says that allyship is a continual process of self-reflection. Within this work, reflection is key. Constantly going back, reflecting on what you have done, reflecting on what you could have done better. It is fundamental to ally work. Where am I here? Actively engaging in decolonizing practices. Within the academy, we like to allies things. We like to indigenize, we like to decolonize, we like to, enculturize. Really what decolonizing means is recognizing that we privilege one knowledge system within the academy. but it's not the only knowledge system. That we can privilege multiple knowledge systems within this academy and not have one that is, higher up than the other. We can privilege many knowledge systems so that more people see themselves within this institution. That's what allyship, or that's what decolonization means to me. It also talks about allyship, be that it requires one to constantly cast a critical eye on themselves, to reevaluate how they are choosing to live there and carry themselves, and to think about how their lifestyle and choices, directly or indirectly, impact Indigenous people. And then we've already talked about the allyship label. It's something that we really need to stop throwing around. I have another one for you here. This one, I got 5 minutes.
Warning.
Okay, this is another one that you can go to. It says the exact same stuff, just in easier to access language. It's from Montreal. It's wonderful. The one thing that I would like to point out from here is that the idea and the titling of allyship is not something that you should give yourself. Allyship is a title that should be given by the people you are allying yourself with. That doesn't, and then that means that it's not interchangeable. If you are an ally to one community, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be seen as an ally to another community, because it's about that relational piece. Nothing about us without us. If you're doing something with Indigenous people in it, you have to include Indigenous people in it. You are going to get this wrong at some point. You are going to misstep. You are going to stumble. Don't let it be the barrier that stops you. You will experience pushback and disengagement, and this is not necessarily your fault, so keep engaging. As a country, we have been skyrocketing towards reconciliation at a breakneck pace since the release of the Truth and Reconciliation's final report in 2015. We need to slow down. We are trying to reconcile at the detriment of the truth. We need to know the truth before we can move on to anything else. The truth is going to be the hard part, because it's not nice. It's uncomfortable. It's scary, but we need to move through that in order to get to the other side. Here's my do's and don'ts. This is what I want to end on. This is the do's and don'ts. So, do make a friend. Make a friend. We're out there. Indigenous people are cool. We like to chat. Make a friend. It's a really great start. Ask questions. Keep trying, even if we make it difficult. Use your voice, even when it's not, might start an argument. Be open, listen, be humble. Practice humility in every place you go. The don'ts. Do not think you can fix it all. If it was easily fixable, we would have done it by now. It's not that easily fixable. Don't assume that all cultures are the same, because we are not. Do not do this for selfish reasons. Do not tokenize us. Do not be quick to respond with solutions. Odds are we've already tried those solutions. Do not refer to Indigenous people as our Indigenous people. We are not yours. We are not Canada's. If you want to refer to us as the Indigenous people of Canada. And then I have a few things that you can do to start your own thing here, which I thought would be really interesting. Follow Indigenous activists. If you want to get involved, follow Indigenous activists, artists, writers, any Indigenous people on social media. Native TikTok. If you are not on Native TikTok, what are you doing with your time? Get on Native TikTok. You will learn so much. And I'm not even, when I used to say this when we all went out and I first got on TikTok, I was really embarrassed about it. And now I'm just living my TikTok dreams. Just get on TikTok, enjoy it. Watch Indigenous movies and shows, read Indigenous authors, make Indigenous friends, attend Indigenous specific information sessions. There are so many of them out there right now. Take Indigenous courses. You're all students. Take Indigenous courses and invite more Indigenous speakers to Wolusu. I think that one would be wonderful. I have some more things here that I can let you, you all have the slides so you can look at them by yourself later. I want to say Nyawagoa, many layers of thanks. I want to specifically thank Ezra and Andrew for inviting me and the rest of you for offering space to me. Is there any questions? I ran through that really quick. I know my time is up. I'm so super sorry.
No worries. We do have actually a little bit of extra time for discussion that kind of like expected.
Because I'm really sweaty from that.
We appreciate the breakneck speed that you kind of went through, and I just want to say, at least in my opinion, I think especially like the do's and don'ts slides really hit home for me. Like I myself, have had at least I guess a privilege, or was super lucky to be able to go to the Six Nations reservation at one point. Had a lot of fun there, played mini golf, right? Chill with some friends, and it's just it's about just learning about people. And I think I told this story last year, but one of my friends who actually is from the reservation, he joked around so much about my ignorance about the reservation. He was saying oh, you have to go ask the chief for like, to be on the reservation, and you have to get your passport and everything like that because it's a foreign country. I'm like, really? I don't think I learned this in university. But he managed to convince me because I didn't want to question that and seem rude, right?
So what I will say to you is, you are, if you're getting teased by an Indigenous person, you're in. If they're poking fun at you, if they're like, nah, if you ever hear the word nah, which is actually a word, I swear,
No way, yeah.
it means you're in. You know, the use of humor and teasing, subtle teasing, is a pedagogical approach for Indigenous people. We utilize that for teaching. You know, we will tease you if you're doing something that's slightly out of the ordinary for our community, so that, you know, come on back to where you're supposed to be. Yeah, you're in. If you're getting teased, if you're getting razzed, you're totally in.
well, you know what? That's a breath of reassurance. I also want to actually just come up to another just quick point of discussion. This was something that some directors have brought to my attention, was that how can we as directors be more involved, right? Because I know that for the extent of the meetings, it's as myself as the chair, I read the line acknowledgement, and it just kind of like, gets on there. So what would you say would be like something that you would recommend the board to kind of do, like, and adopt, right? I know that also the SU has the little statement at the bottom to their emails, but I'm just kind of curious to hear what your thoughts on this are.
Yeah, I mean, it's decolonization and indigenization are such a weird thing, because it's such a personal journey that you're going to go on, right? It's not something that can be mandated. It's not something that people can tell, you can't be told to decolonize. You have to want to in order to make it done right. So I would say for you folks, inviting other speakers in. There is, the Indigenous Student Association. Why can't you folks, have a I don't know, a bi student engagement thing? Engaging with other Indigenous things that are happening on campus. Obviously, we're not on campus right now, but there are so many things that are going on. Follow the Indigenous Student Centers on Facebook. That is the best way to keep up to date with what's happening. They put a lot of, I don't know why Facebook is, except for TikTok now, Facebook is the really sort of where Indigenous people go to share information. That's where we go about community events. We post things on there about what's going on in our communities. Start following. I'm telling you, just start following people and you'll fall down the rabbit hole. I did see something come up about TikTokers that I like. I want to pull my phone up and start showing you TikToks that I love, but that's inappropriate. Really just start, like a couple of them, and just, you'll get in there. You'll get into native TikTok.
That's definitely something new from last year and has definitely caught my attention.
Yeah. Yeah, can we all just acknowledge the fact that TikTok was not a thing last year, and now all of a sudden TikTok is.
I know, right? A blessing and a curse.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sometimes I learn the most on TikTok.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Pardon?
Sometimes I learn the most information on TikTok.
Right? There is a lot of good information on there. And the good part about it is that on social media, you're getting it from the actual individuals. It's not getting watered down. It's not being sort of funneled through an institutional lens. And it's fun. There's food content on native TikTok. There's cultural content. There's language content. There's literally just, and not even just TikTok. If you want to dip your toe into Twitter, good luck, but it's, Twitter's scary sometimes.
I do have a quick question regarding your suggestion slide at the end. I find that there's a huge difference between entertainment and reality. Mm-hmm. So are there any TV shows or movies that you recommend that, even though they are entertainment, they probably provide the most realistic message or idea that you want to convey?
It's a really good question. Documentaries are always the best way to go, right? I mean, you can find documentary. The National Film Board of Canada, they have a huge caveat of Indigenous made documentaries and films. Free to watch. It's free to use for educational purposes. There's so much information in there. There is a MOOC, which is a massive open online, the gift of diabetes. The gift of diabetes is so good. There is a massive open online course, which is a MOOC from Indigenous. It's called Indigenous Canada. It's from University of Alberta. It's free. It's 12 modules. You can take your time to do it, tra-la-la through it as long as you want. It's completely free. You will learn so much. There is also 4 seasons of reconciliation available on My Learning Space. The institution bought the rights for it for a certain amount of time. It is a guided discussion, so I haven't been on it because I already did it a while ago when they asked me to do it when they were looking at it. So I haven't been on it, but I know that a lot of my colleagues, they have denoted time when they have to go in and have conversations. So I'm not sure how that works, but it is also available for you. How's that? Good. Oh no, specific for movies and stuff. I would say go on to National Film Board, go on to APTN, which is the Aboriginal People's Television Network. Plenty of good stuff on there as well. How's that?
Sounds good. I also put in the chat, I got a lot out of First Contact.
Yes, you did. Yeah, we had Ezra and I had a very large conversation last week about First Contact, which is a sort of like a reality show, I think, where they take Canadians who don't have a lot of understanding about indigeneity, and they take them to Indigenous communities all over the country, and they travel these different Indigenous communities and meet Indigenous people. I think that would be really great to watch too. Definitely. And there's also a really good post-apocalyptic zombie movie that was made by Indigenous people that stars Indigenous people. I can't remember the name of it though.
Wait, what? This is one of the most important things, and yet you can't remember it?
It's really, I will find it and I will send it to you
It
folks.
sounds like Walking Dead.
It honestly,
but like Aboriginal, and I think that's such a crazy but also honestly cool concept.
It's great. There's a lot of really great sort of fiction stuff out there that has Indigenous centeredness in it. So yeah, I forget what the movie is called. It stars Michael Grey Eyes. That might help. And it's a post-apocalyptic zombie movie that centers around an Indigenous community. It's so good. It's really graphic though. So if you really like those intense ones. Blood Quantum. It's called Blood Quantum. Thank you. That was my partner. Just came out from the bedroom to say Blood Quantum. He's good for that. Okay, well, I thank you so much, Erin, for all those wonderful documentary and film choices too. So I think me and the board can all say unanimously that we took a lot of this, and it'll definitely help us, especially with some of our future discussion matters that we have to attend to. I definitely do want to reach out in the future to see how the board can get more involved in these type of things, and that this is not just a one-off thing that we do at the beginning of every single term. Yeah, for sure. Anyone, my email is, I saw my email came up. I think Ezra put it in there. Thank you very much. Email me with anything you have. If you have questions, if you have, something is happening and I need some support, anything that you need, please reach out to me. In July, we are also going to be having the AVP of Indigenous Initiatives starting, Darren Thomas. If you could get him in here to talk to you, he's going to be wicked busy, but if you can get him in here to talk to you, that would be wonderful. Darren is fantastic. And we're really excited that it's going to be the beginning. We're going to start moving again once Darren gets in, which we're really excited about. Okay. Well, in that case, thank you so much for your time, Erin. I really appreciate it. And like also for going at the break next week. Yeah. To make our schedule possible. Anytime, anything else you folks need, just let me know. It was wonderful to spend some time with you. Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful weekend. We finally have a sunny one. So I need everyone to get, feels like, yes. I want to go for a bike ride, but you know what? I'm here. This is my other second home. I would like to challenge everyone to at least try to get outside at some point this weekend because it is going to be beautiful. We just got barbecue propane, so I'm gonna go propane barbecue something. I don't know what. I'm gonna throw some meat on my barbecue. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye. Okay, well, that was a great presentation, and now we can finally attend to the last agenda item. So also, just for the record, that Director Mohammed did have to unfortunately leave. So next are in-camera sessions. So can I get a motion on the table to go in camera
with the board, the president, our executive director, Champagne, and the board secretary. Motion by Vice Chair Sneedy, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Any discussion on the matter? Sorry, would you like to speak to your motion? No. Any discussion on the matter? If not, then all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director Iqbal,
Approve.
Director Loachi,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve, and I believe Phil has something to say.
Yes, before we approve of this, Phil, what would you like to say before?
Yeah, sorry, Ian kind of took off there for a little bit to kind of deal with his familial birthday stuff with his kids. But he would like to come back at least for the first part of the conversation. So I'm not sure if we have to make a motion to bring him in. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I did notice that. I'm assuming then in that case, just to amend the motion to also allow our Director of Advocacy and Policy, Mueller, to be in camera. Is it necessary to go through all the votes again and the whole motion?
Well, you could just ask if there's anybody who's opposed or abstain.
Okay, is there any opposition or abstentions? If not, then the motion passes unanimously. Welcome in camera, everyone. If it's possible to have the cameras on, please put them on now.
Should we end this recording and then start the new one?
I will just right now.